You're looking at what everyone else would do. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something a bit cleverer and a bit different. Does that underpin everything you do, that kind of disruptive?
Well, it does, and also we're just unconventional. We've positioned our product in a certain way. That could be the price point, could be effectively too low. And I think in retail, it's a lot easier to come down in price than it is to go up in price. We're not actually physically paying for these influencers to post stuff on our behalf. Everything we do is it's real, it's true, it's authentic. They're actually using our products because they truly believe in them, rather than us forcing them to.
Welcome back to Embracing Marketing Mistakes, the podcast for marketers looking to laugh and learn from the mistakes of other marketeers. We take a look at some serious marketing blunders so that you know what to do and what not to do in a similar situation. I'm your host, Chris Norton. I'm excited to have Howard Moss join us in this episode. CEO of Astonish Cleaning Products, a family-run business with humble beginnings in Leeds, turned international success story. He's also a client. Howard is here to share the journey the brand has been on and what he's learned along the ride, from the challenges of navigating the intricacies of a family business to building a portfolio of products that has found fame in more than 30 different countries. We'll be chatting about how Astonish has swept up the competition, how to polish a family brand, and how to keep sustainability and cruelty-free claims spotless. We also promised those are the last of the cleaning puns. Please God. As always, sit back, relax, and let's hear all about the Astonish journey and what it takes to market the modern family-run business. So, Howard Moss, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, and thank you very much for having me.
I mean, you're a client of ours. That's the first disclaimer. So, congratulations to being. I think is Howard the first client that's ever been on the show, Will?
I believe so. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, it's good to be the first in something.
What an accolade!
We're about 68 episodes in, and we haven't really had any clients that we've invited on the show. So, but we think,
is that an omen or is it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll find out at the end of it.
Yeah.
For those of you, for those of you that are not familiar with Astonish, can you give us a quick overview of the brand and why it's sort of a little bit different in your sector?
So Astonish is, we manufacture household cleaning products and hygiene products. We've been established now for a little over 50 years. Everything we do is manufactured in our single UK West Yorkshire site, which we're very proud of.
Bradford, right?
Which is Bradford, yeah. We were established in Leeds, so we've always kept our West Yorkshire roots. And we supply pretty much 80% of what we do here in the UK and about 20% of what we do to global markets all over the world.
Yeah, wow, because, I mean, I went to the event that we had in, was it December?
Yeah.
So we had, for those of you that don't know, we had you guys held an event with the cleaning influencers.
That's
right.
I
was surrounded by a room of, and I've done loads of influencer events, but this was so random. There was like videos popping up of people cleaning everything from sinks and toilets, and it was just it was like, and there's something about watching videos of people cleaning that's quite hypnotic. But you held this brilliant event where you had loads of clean influencers in the room, and I just thought it was such a great thing that you were celebrating excellence in social media of cleaning, and you'd got them all together. You'd put the whole event on, and one of the things that stood out for me was that you had people that had come from as far as. What was it? The Isle of...
Yeah, there was one lady, I think she had to get a plane, a boat, a train.
Yeah.
I think she set off about 16 hours prior, so...
no pressure to make it a good event. About that.
Yeah, they were all winning awards for the best reel, different things and different platforms. So that, I thought that was a really great idea. How long have you been doing that?
So we've been... I mean, the influencer part, Chris, is something where we're very, very fortunate that, as you say, it seems to be that cleaning products and these people posting on their platforms transformations of miraculous before and afters. It's got such a real appeal to followers and people watching. So that probably started the real hero of the the digital platforms was Mrs. Hinch.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with Mrs. Hinch, she became a phenomenon probably around about 8 years ago. And she took brands that everybody, are well-known brands, multinational brands, everything from P&G to Unilever, etc. But she also went out to cherry pick, not so familiar brands, and would pick them to do these amazing transformations. And it took off from there. And then you had loads of other influencers that suddenly became very passionate about the cleaning sector.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because that sector is like the influencer sector. Some clients think, influencers they're not like the traditional media. They don't have the same sort of power. We were just talking beforehand of a client I've got that's they're like a local park where people can go. And when we get the media down, like the broadcast media, the TV, and we do something like that, they're absolutely buzzing about that because they're on TV. Whereas if we get one of the biggest influencers in the UK to bring their family down to the park and use all the facilities, they just don't see it. Whereas you guys, I feel like you've got like a modern view of it, and your head of social media and everything was hosting the event and was dressed up in a green Santa's outfit, which really confused me at the beginning as well.
Yeah.
So did Mrs. Hinch originally kind of organically discover your brand then? 7-8 years ago?
What we've ended up doing, Will, is we've ended up basically engaging, and as Chris has said, our head of digital, which is Nick, who's a family member, and he had no previous history with anything digital, really. He actually worked prior to joining Astonish probably 14 years ago now. He was working for ITV for many years as a videographer and as an editor. He came into Astonish when we literally didn't even have a platform on Facebook, Instagram, etc. As our brand was evolving, and like I say, we've already been established for, a good number of years by that stage. I asked Nick to come in, and really just, he started off part-time because he'd had enough of, I think he'd reached the ceiling really where he could go, within ITV. So he started off part-time, and it really snowballed from there. It was just something where, like I say, you need a bit of luck, and certainly Mrs. Hinch coming on board, she catapulted this massive sort of craze, with regards to these different cleaning methods, different hacks, and different products out there, like you say, that people weren't necessarily so familiar with. And I think what we then did was we started to really engage with them, send them samples out, keep them informed of anything new that we were bringing on board. So we're not actually physically paying for these influencers to post stuff on our behalf. Everything we do is it's real, it's true, it's authentic. They're actually using our products because they truly believe in them, rather than us forcing them to use a product and post on it because we're paying for it. So yeah, I mean, we're obviously very, very active with them. I'm very grateful for their support towards posting on their platforms. Like I say, by the fact that we're not investing in them, other than the fact of sending them samples and really making them aware of our products. And
Nick had become a bit of a celebrity as well. They were all like wanting their picture with him because he's been working with him for so long. It was quite entertaining to watch because they're all like famous in their own right. Loads of different accents from different parts of the country. It was fascinating. So while I was at the event, the biggest thing that stood out to me was the story behind you and your family and how Astonish was established.
Yeah.
Do you want to just walk us through that? Because I told Will a bit about it as soon as I came back the next day. Because Emily, our team that work on the PR account, have told me about you. But when you started telling it from your side, it was really, really interesting. So do you want to tell us a bit about how it all came about?
Yeah. So we are a family business, second generation now, being myself. So my father started the business. We're actually not 100% Chris sure when the official launch of his business, but it was around about 1971. and he'd just come back from Canada, so he left school at 15, didn't have any qualifications of any sort. And when he left school, as a 17-year-old, he went to live in Canada. Him and a friend, they travelled out there. They literally had enough to keep them by for a week, up until getting out there, and finding work. So my father's going to be, all being well, please God, he'll be 80 next. So if you date it back to being a 17-year-old, you're looking at a little over 60 years ago. Anyway, so they went to Toronto, and if you fast forward, my father ended up living there for 2.5 years. His friend came back quite soon after being out there, but my father he's got his first job in a shoe shop on commission and did really well, to the point where one of the guys who he sold shoes to ended up having like a white goods business where you went out door to door selling white goods, because in them days, fridges, freezers, etc. weren't in stores. So then he asked my father to come and do that for him, which he did do. And he ended up just being a really, really good salesperson. So he was there for 2.5 years. And I think if it wasn't for his own father sort of saying, look, I want you to come back to the UK. You've been out there a while now, unless, you're going to see yourself living there for the rest of your life. I want you to come back.
There's no internet then either, is there? It's not like you can have a face-to-face chat.
Exactly. So his family were missing him, so he came back to the UK, living in Leeds there, and he went to be a demonstrator. And he went to work for a guy who was doing demonstrations at agricultural shows like the Ideal Home Exhibition, the Great Yorkshire. There was a whole host of these shows all over the country. And one of his products or his main product that this guy had was a cleaning product in a metal tin that was like a hard paste type product. And it was used as a mild abrasive on a variety of, different cookware items, different surfaces, anything that wasn't either highly polished or painted. It would remove the most stubborn burnt-on stains, etc. So my father was working for this guy and, understanding all the demonstration and getting to, grips with it all. And then eventually became, really, really skilled at doing these demonstrations himself. The guy who he was working for, he was reaching retirement quite soon after my father being there. And he took a shine to my dad because he could see he'd got a real art for doing these demonstrations. Probably, was even more sort of like enthusiastic as he was doing it than this guy himself. So he said to my father, look, I've got these established, shows that I've had secure bookings at for years and years. I've got this product that is under my name that I get manufactured for me and I do at these shows. Do you want to take it on? And, we'll agree on a royalty. So that's what my father did. By this stage, he's met my mum. They've ended up getting married and having my sisters and myself, me being the youngest of 3. That's what my father was doing, these agricultural shows all over the country. And then the next thing was that whilst he was doing it, they're quite seasonal. So these shows are...
summer, aren't they?
Yeah, tend to be more sort of like spring, summer. Winter time, not a great deal going on. So, my father's thinking, well, what can I be doing during that time? I can't just work for a short period and it's great, but there must be something else I can do. So my mum, who sadly is my late mum now, she had a sister living in Florida who'd been there. She'd moved out there. She was a dancer and originally in New York, went to be a dancer there and then met her US husband there. And they moved down to Florida when Disney was getting built because her husband was an electrical contractor. So he took an opportunity there and they were now based in Florida. So as a young family, we used to go out and visit them, do do all the Disney stuff at the same time. So whilst my father was out there, and it tended to be in winter time that we'd go, so around about December, January, my father came up with the idea that, do you know what? Surely this product that I do at these demonstrations would be amazing out here if I could demonstrate it out in the US. So, he spoke about, my mum did a bit. And again, these are the days where you're going back 50 years ago. So no, like you say, internet or ways of research, let's say, other than just do the digging yourself. So in true entrepreneurial spirit, he started to plot where he could do these demonstrations. And they didn't have agricultural shows as such. They had like these flea markets. So he took an area that was in the deep south of the US. Don't ask me why, but that's where he decided would be. They must have had these flea market shows that he's got wind of or been told about. So he now sends, this is the following year, once he's, structured it all, he sends stock that is purchased out to the US, and he now flies out there to basically go and demonstrate this stock. He's rented a van, picks up his stock, and is now going to demonstrate at these flea markets. And fast forward now, about 3 or 4 weeks after being there, everything that he's sent out there, right, is barely sold a thing. So now he has to ship the stock back to the UK, gets on with his UK demonstrations, etc., and then says to my mum after, incurring quite a cost and everything, he says, do you know what? I still think we can do this in America, the demonstrations. He says, I just think I got the wrong area. So my mum wasn't best pleased, because she's thinking, you got a young family, you're now going to go and risk a lot of money, which, to them at the time. So the following year, he now decides to send the stock out again, and he's worked out an area on the west coast of America, California way. Better weather, different style of where these sort of flea markets opportunities were. And the polar opposite, the stock that he'd sent out, within 2 days, it's gone.
Oh, wow.
So it's been an unbelievable success. And now, for around about 5 years, Chris, he's now got a split market where he's got his UK demonstrations that he's doing, and he's got his US.
So he's got summer and winter.
Correct.
Right.
And I guess he had a real love as well for, what he was doing in the US. I mean, this is, when I'm talking now, it wouldn't be unheard of today for somebody to go out to the US and sell a product that they've come up with. But you've got to put your mind to, this was 50 years ago, and it really was courageous, entrepreneurial, and you've got to be brave, and you've got to be determined at because again, what you're familiar with here, the Great Yorkshire Show, the idea, over there, it was, he was completely oblivious to it up until he got started. So, the next big thing, was the product at the time was called Klin.
Klin?
K-L-I-N.
Klin.
So this was the product that the guy who was gone to work and demonstrate for originally, this was his product that he was
Dutch. Klin.
I guess it was maybe a spin-off from Clean but that's what he's come up with.
Nice and clean.
Exactly. And it was in a yellow tub, metal tin with black writing. So whilst he's in America doing these shows, somebody's bought one of the, the tins off him. And it so happens that they're a buyer for a department store in New York. And on the back, again, in them days, no internet, no nothing. It was all like telex and fax numbers and a telephone number. And the next thing, they've got a fax come through, and it basically, we've bought this product, wherever it was in the US. We think it's the most incredible product, right? We own a department store in the US. We'd love to buy the product for our department store, for our kitchenware area, to clean these tough burnt-on stains. But we think the name's rubbish. Can we pick our own name? and you can supply us it. So they're not understanding that my father's just really like a one-man band that's going out demonstrating. They're thinking they've got in touch with some, cleaning manufacturer.
Yeah.
So the next thing, they've flown my mother and father out to New York.
Wow.
They've then had a whole marketing discussion around this product and what name they can come up with. And lo and behold, they've come up with the name Astonish. And they've come up with it with a half Union Jack above the brand. And if you look at some of our, very first packs that came up, you'll see the word, which was just in block, literally caps, lettering Astonish with a half Union Jack above it to symbolise that it was a British product. Anyway, and again, my father's going along with it, that, he manufactures this product, etc.
Your dad's not a marketeer.
He's not a marketeer.
He's a salesman more than anything, isn't he?
He is. But I think he also was, what he was very, very passionate about was, I guess his product and how it could be used. And he really, and I think, again, which I'll come to in a minute, what America did as well is that what they were doing nearly 50 years ago is very relevant to what our market is today. And I'll come to that. Sort of certain aspects about what Astonish stands for today really stemmed from what my father saw in the US all those years ago. So now he goes back to the UK, he's doing his demonstrations, he's got his Clin products, etc. But he's making this product through this manufacturer that he's buying Clin off. He's now making the same product, but instead of it being in a yellow tin with black writing called Clin, it's in a white tin with the wording Astonish in blue and a half Union Jack above it.
I wonder what the guy said who originally had Clin when he wanted to change the name of it. Was he not bothered, obviously?
Well, the guy who, he took the demonstrations off is still doing Clin now, my father, because he's not, the Astonish is just going to this department store.
Right, okay.
Right, so it's their brand technically. And they're not buying big volumes, it's just for one department store. And now we're fast forward a year, and my father's still doing, what he's doing, and this small stock's going to this department store under Astonish. The department store goes bankrupt, goes into Chapter 11 over in the US. So they didn't owe him anything because they were buying the stock, paying for it, sending it over. But my father just thought, do you know what? Sod this, right? I've got this brand called Clin, which doesn't really look great. Everybody, I'm doing this demonstration with it. Everybody loves it when I'm doing it. But I've got this gorgeous tub that, has been designed by this department store. The great name Astonish, half Union Jack. I'm just going to start doing that instead now. So that's what he started to do. So Clin now goes away. Astonish is what he's doing in all the demonstrations. And that's how it goes on. And then the next major part of the history is the company where he's buying the product from in the West Midlands, right, in Solihull, they're suddenly having trouble, right, supplying him with the product. So now he's thinking, well, if I don't get this product, I'm out of business. I've got nothing. He's got all.
Just to be clear, it's one product. You've only got one.
By this stage, Will, he's got the main one product, which is in this tin, this mild abrasive, and there's actually a second product that's like the equivalent to like a Cif cream. So it's like a liquid version of what's in this tin. So he's generally doing two and then he would also do things like sponges and cloths, accessories for it to use. But if you can't get the product supplied, that's it. It's gone. So again, you look at somebody with, you've got to be so resilient and so determined and so, forthright in your beliefs as to how something can happen. A lot of people would have just, sort of folded at that moment. But he didn't. He just thought, well, how hard can it be to make it? And again, you need that bit of luck. And one of the guys who he used to deal with as like his sales contact at this company who was supplying him. He was also not happy because he was on commission and out of work now because things weren't getting done by them. So he said he'd help my father understand how to make it.
The recipe, basically.
Yeah, and just he sort of had an idea how this product was put together. So they bought an old second-hand mixing sort of pot, if you like, from a scrapyard. And by this stage, my father's got like an old shed on Meanwood Road in Leeds, which he still owns today, himself personally.
Has he got a blue plaque outside it?
From there, after probably umpteen failed attempts, they've eventually started to make the product.
Sounds like George's Marvellous Medicine, where they endlessly try and recreate the original concoction.
Well, the stories that he would tell me on how, it'd just be caked, from head to toe in, because it's got like a mineral. It's like, to the naked eye, it would just look like flour. And then, but, you're mixing that with waters and various other things. And
but producing something is a whole different skill set again.
Well, of course it is. And like I say, you really have to have that entrepreneurial spirit. And
that tenacity is, I mean, all through from the very first point, that tenacity to head out to America, to not be beaten. And you talk about luck, but actually I think you make your own luck in these situations, don't you?
You do. And I think you've also, when you do get an opportunity, whether it was the first person who he met being able to demonstrate when he came back to Leeds from being in Canada, when he started demonstrating and went to the US and it failed, to have the gusto to go back and do it again, and then to have a department store, take the product but want to rename it. So all of these different things, are huge chapters in where Astonish has come today. And so I look at it by now is manufacturing. And then I guess at this stage, if we fast forward a little bit, is when I start to join the business.
How old are you when you start?
So I was a failed student, Chris, or should I say a student that probably enjoyed the social side of it more than
what did you study?
So I went to having left school at sixth form originally, which disappointed my parents because they were obviously passionate about. They gave me an opportunity to go to a really good school in Leeds that I wouldn't say I was a rebel, but I think I enjoyed the sports side of things and just sort of life itself rather than knuckling down and doing what I was there to do, let's say. So I came out of sixth form after going back for about a couple of months there. And then I went to what was Airedale and Wharfdale College to do a BTEC there in business and marketing, which I liked. I enjoyed the course. And then after that, I went to Manchester University, or what was, Manchester Polytechnic.
Manchester Met now, client of ours.
And Manchester, at the time what are we now, Chris? We're in the early 90s, was an absolute incredible scene. I loved every minute of it.
When were you there? Hacienda Turf?
Yeah, all the bars and clubs.
Lots of temptations to not study and go out, I think.
Yeah, and what's great is, the guy who I lived with in the first year is still today, fast forward, my best friend, was my best man at my wedding and vice versa. So it's something where I had an unbelievable time. But after being there 2 years, it was a 4-year course. It was a business and marketing degree. It just wasn't for me. I just thought I'd done everything that I wanted to do in them 2 years. And also the benefit is it gave me my independence. I'd left home. I'd gone to live on my own there. So it certainly encouraged me to want to kick on in life and be my own person in terms of have my own independence, my own flat, my own place at a young age. But I just didn't want to do the studies part. I just found it
The hard bit, basically.
Yeah, the hard bit, Chris. And also, I just found it a bit almost... I felt to myself in terms of, I get the fact that if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, you really are going to have to, go through your qualifications and your studies to learn your art and learn your skill. But I just felt in terms of what I was going to end up doing in life, I didn't feel that staying on for 4 full years at the Poly there was going to necessarily, other than put me in a lot of debt probably. And
so what did you do then? You left the uni and went straight into the business?
So I left uni. I was seeing a girlfriend at the time who lived in London, and I was interested in retail. I knew I wanted to get involved in something, business related, product related, and sales related. And I just wanted to get involved in retail at the time. I liked all the aspects of what retail stood for. And I thought, well, where can I go to get the best training in retail? So I thought, pick the best retailers. So there was M&S, John Lewis. There was a couple, obviously, based in the north here in your Asda's and Morrison's. So I sent off for a training management, opportunity at these retailers. And with this girlfriend I was seeing in London, I thought, to get something in London, at a John Lewis or an M&S would be a great opportunity. So I went for interviews with them all, and I got offered the opportunities at John Lewis and at M&S. So I decided to take the one on Baker Street at M&S, and I lasted 2 minutes. I was a fish out of water. Okay. So again, I came back to Leeds, and before I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and get involved in somewhere where I could see myself having a good opportunity, I said to my dad, I said, look, is there anything you've got, at your work there, that I can help out with, and it can just, tie me over, until I really, plot out exactly what I want to do and where I want to go. So I started helping out on Meanwood Road there. And it was just something where, I can honestly say from that moment onwards.
In a shed, by the way, you started out working.
Yeah, by this stage, there's a little warehouse. Okay. As part of it.
How many people work in there then?
There's probably around about, all in all, probably about 8 people.
Okay.
Maybe 10 at a push.
Okay.
At what point did you sort of think, I see some potential in this, or did you just kind of naturally go into it and see what happens?
Well, this is what I mean, Will. From the first day of going there, it was just, I can honestly say I never, ever had a period of coming away and thinking, do you know what? What am I doing here? This isn't for me. This is, I don't really get it. I don't really see any of it. It was ironic in the way that my father, like I said, was a demonstrator. Things had evolved by the time I'd got there. Obviously, he was manufacturing, a very, very labour intensive, operation it was of manufacturing, but it was manufacturing. And by this stage, he'd also got involved in, I guess, a natural progression of demonstrating, which was QVC.
Oh, yeah.
So by this stage, you've got the live demonstrations on Sky with what was the QVC channel.
And that's absolutely transferable skills from those kind of agricultural shows, isn't it?
100%.
Very much so. And to a certain degree, you're getting free TV exposure. For the audience that's watching, because obviously you don't pay for that TV exposure. You're selling your product there and you're advertising it on air. However, one of the things that I always found sort of in my, pretty much right from the offset of starting, because I started off in the warehouse. I started off making the product, and it was really grassroots and I loved it. It was, I could see things, and I guess, I would always go up at the end of each day and I'd have a chat to my dad when he was there, if he wasn't out demonstrating or working, and we'd sort of shoot the breeze on various things, and I would say things like, God, the way we make this product or the way we do this, it's so like time consuming, or it's so like, I wonder if we can, sort of improve things. I'm looking at ways of like with double and treble handling, and, there must be ways of improving it. And then more importantly, I was looking at we had like a mail order area where when you bought the product at an exhibition, you got like a little form so that if you'd finish using the product before going back to the same agricultural show again, you could write, because again, in them days, there still wasn't the internet, right? You could write and you could order the product to be posted out to you. You could get like a
subscription.
Yeah.
Which is now a massively...
Which is now the Amazon click the subscription button.
Yeah, and you look at things like bamboo toilet paper. I mean, everyone's got the subscription model now, haven't they? Yeah.
So, and the amount of people who would attach a little note to the mail order and say, bought your product at such and such. It's the most incredible product, absolutely. However, can't get it in my local store, can't get it in this place. I'm absolutely lost without it. Here's my mail order form. And they'd be ordering 2, 3, 4 and 5 units more to be sent out to them with postage and packing, etc.
Good product. That just tells you.
And I used to look there and think, God, why isn't it in retail? Why aren't we out there with it? And then more importantly, I used to look at things like a lot of the time we'd be low on stock, or we wouldn't have the availability, so there was so many things that I looked at very, very early on that I thought, this has got absolute huge potential, but it's not really being tapped into. And I think the main difference between myself and my father is that my father was always at the front end of it. He was out there demonstrating. He was an absolute genius at his profession as a demonstrator and as an entrepreneur, as somebody who could see an opportunity and give a customer a genuine, product that they're going to benefit from. He was unique. However, I would say that the great difference between my father and myself is that I was more processed.
Okay.
And I definitely would look at things, I guess, it wasn't my initial baby and it wasn't my profession to be a demonstrator, let's say. So I was just looking at it more from the scale of, why are we out of stock? Why are we? Why have we got such sort of labour-intensive ways of manufacturing? Why aren't we in retail if people want to have this product? So all of these things are taking shape in my mind, and that, I guess, was my my anchor really.
It feels like an apprenticeship.
Yeah, I'm now starting to push and probe and say to my, we need to get this into manufacturing. There must be a way of sealing that box quicker, or filling that tub quicker, or getting the lids put on rather than, people just there with a mallet and, whacking a lid onto a tub. And, how can we improve on that? So I got, again, I think the best way of me also, developing myself and enjoying the opportunity that I had early on in my career is that my father never ever suffocated or put me off or sort of just dampen my spirits with sort of coming at things. If he felt that what I was pushing at had legs, that he'd say to me, well, go on and do it, come on, come to me with what you believe in, and I'll happily back it if we feel that it's not something that's going to be damaging to the business. So things moved on from there, and then I guess the next big step is we've developed 2 or 3 more products by this stage, and we've got our first chemist, which was interesting. And again, I go on about the US. Where the US was very relevant for us is we'd started to place in our packaging things like vegan and things like cruelty-free, not tested on animals. And we'd seen 2 or 3 of the products in the US whilst my father was demonstrating over there. that he just brought back because he knew there was nothing similar to it in the UK. And we'd got a chemist at our place on Meanwood to try and develop the same product. And one of them was this special glass cleaner. And over there, they used to have a product called Windex that was like this spray and wipe. And the only product we had in the UK market, it was very much sort of like a Mr. Muscle.
It was Windoline as well.
Yeah, and there was Windoline as well, but they weren't the same as this product, Chris, over in the US. So we cloned a formula. We tried to match it as close as we could to what this US product was. And we fast forward today, our window and glass cleaner is very much, the basis of that product that was in the US at the time. And it's one of our hero trigger sprays. And that was our first foray into spray cleaners, Chris.
NPD.
Is there enormous pressure when it comes to NPD? Having started with Clin, an amazing product that everyone loves, there's the risk that you're going to dilute the brand. I mean, how do you ensure your NPD is just high quality? Is it just a ton of research or is it intuition?
Yeah, well, I think there's a mix of both, Will. I think going back to the point I made about the spray and wipe, the window cleaner that we do today, that was our first foray into sprays. We fast forward today and we manufacture 45 million sprays a year, and we're probably the second biggest producer of trigger sprays in the UK. So without having that NPD, we'd have never have got into what is today our number one product, our mold and mildew blaster, kitchen degreasers, bathroom cleaners. So we're it's a huge part of what we do, yet it's ironic, to come to Will's point, is sometimes your NPD, which is absolutely critical to what we do because it gives our shoppers and it gives our customers a reason to be extending our presence within their stores, within their groups. We deal in different markets, so culturally certain products have more relevance in one market than they will do in another.
But the vegan thing, you were the first to do that.
I mean, what's relevant today, you look at it, like I say, in the US, all those years ago, 40, 50 years ago, that was a thing over there.
So had you seen that is naturally going to become a trend here? I mean, and how much?
We hadn't. I mean, again, we just
ahead of the curve.
We just thought, you know what? It's as a market, the US was it was the boom market. It was the marketplace where they tended to, have things that exploded, and Europe would cotton onto it, X amount of years or months or whatever later. So I guess we just put it on our packaging. It was a nice to have. You didn't have to be a vegetarian or a vegan to buy a cleaning product with vegan on there. It just, or if you didn't have to be a pet owner to have not test on animals. These were things that you looked at and you just thought, well, they must care, these guys. Yeah. So we were ahead of the curve. We put biodegradable, showing on our products, because all of these things you can't just put on there if your product doesn't stand for it. But we wanted to shout about it. And that, I guess, is what Astonish has always been. You fast forward today as sustainability is a huge thing. Not tested on animals is a big relevant thing. There's probably the vegan market's probably one of the fastest growing sectors in any grocer. So all of these things are, like you say, we were massively ahead of our time. And isn't it ironic how so many different brands, wanting to include these,
and then get accused of tokenism because they're
and we sort of sit there and stay true to. I mean, we are proud of the fact that we are actually accredited by the Cruelty Free Association and the vegan society. So there's a lot of brands out there that might say we don't test on animals, we are vegan. However, they're not actually officially endorsed by these accreditations. So we're proud of that.
No, and also you're the household goods brand of the year from the grocer.
Oh, that was a...
Which is amazing, by the way.
That was an accolade, Chris, that, we thank you guys for partnering with us on ensuring that we actually pushed ourselves to enter that. But, to be recognised by the leading trade association and such an incredibly well recognised by the retail platform everywhere where we sell into, and I think what Astonish has done for so many years now is punching above its weight. Is the goes back to what I said right at the beginning, in the way that from the very first day I started at Astonish to what is now, coming up to 30 years, is I've never ever had a period where, naturally, I have days where, you're up against it, or, you've got, real challenges and real, things to face. However, it's an incredible business. And I think the most exciting part of that is our independence and the fact that we massively punch above our weight, and we disrupt what would normally be a stranglehold by your multinationals.
So, Howard, you do a lot in sponsorship in sport. Do you want to tell us a bit about what you do with Wimbledon?
We do every single year, the first up until about 5 years, I think it was right at the beginning of COVID, you were never allowed to have any branding at Wimbledon apart from, there was Rolex in the corner. It's the only tournament that won't allow any boarding to go around. So if you actually look at Wimbledon, it'll only have the Rolex above the scoreboard. It'll have like Slazenger across the back of the sort of like the green, barriers where the ball, and then you used to have the drinks cabinet, which was it used to be Robinson's, but is now Evian or whatever it is. Yeah. And then in terms of the players, they had to wear all white. They couldn't have the crazy colours like you can at the US and French wear. And they could only have the branding of the clothing. So Nike, Adidas or whatever. But then 5 years ago, they allowed patching to come in on the players. So Nike are the only brand that won't allow a player. So if a player's signed up to Nike, they won't allow any patching to be on there. It's part of their contract. But any other brand will. So whether it's Castor, whether it's, Adidas, whether it's Puma, whatever. So we got involved in, we do 10 matches every year, and we'll only pick centre court. That's part of the deal. Mm-hmm. And we do it with a sports agency. We only pick centre court. Obviously, you don't know what your matches are going to be, because obviously we'll do it up to the quarter-final, and we'll always pick the opponent of in the first week, the top
seed
British players.
Oh, right, okay.
So going back 5 and 4 years ago, it was Murray. Everything Murray related, right? And this is what people couldn't work out. They were like, I don't get it. Why is Astonish like partnering that, that Chilean player from wherever?
I thought
right?
this when I saw you
and the female. Right. So anyway, last year, obviously Raducanu.
Yeah.
She's massive news. She's like, she's Nike. You're never going to get her, right? And every match Raducanu had, we'd sponsor, right, the opponent, right? Because in tennis, right, you've just got cameras, right? So first of all, it's BBC, so there's no adverts. They're honing in on each player 50-50. So it's not like they'll do more of Raducanu, they're holding it. And then obviously when it goes to the break, you've got two players just sat down there and the camera's just on both of them.
And it's hours and hours. Right. Sometimes it's hours and hours and hours, isn't it?
And so 5 years ago, we did Murray and 3 matches went to 5 sets all night. And we had the opponent on there.
Now, did you go to every game?
No, we get the opposite. I did do this year. I went to 2. But we've just been fortunate. We've cherry-picked right. So we had a New Zealand girl this year who was beating Raducanu. She then went on to... and she had it slapped right in front of her there, Astonish, so all eyeballs were on it. And the amount of media cover, and I wouldn't mind if I said to you what it costs, how much you think it costs to be per match.
100 grand, 200 grand?
So if I told you, it works out to be roughly around about 6,000.
Per match.
So it's unbelievable media coverage.
Prohibitions,
mind-blowing.
This feels like you doing things not, you're looking at what everyone else would do. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something a bit cleverer and a bit different. Does that underpin everything you do, that kind of disruptive?
Well, it does, and also what we, and again, we can chat it on, on the part. We're just unconventional. And I think, without, saying it, we're just, we don't actually waste our time analysing the shit out of something. Because before you know it, I can't tell you the amount. Chris obviously knows we use, and I always have done, we use 2 agencies for all our design work. I used to use a company in London called Springett's, who now sadly, and the original owner there got very poorly, and it was just never the same again after he'd left. And then over the last sort of 8.5, 9 years, I used Born Ugly. And whilst they try and get involved in other things, Born Ugly, and I always say to them, stick to what you know. As designers, which was formerly previously Elmwood, they're brilliant at what they do.
Yeah, they're a great outfit, aren't they?
In design work, they're phenomenal. And they charge for it, but they are phenomenal. And the thing, and the amount of times Elmwood and now Born Ugly will tell me that they'll have corporate X or huge equity company Y who they can spend 400-500 grand on covering a huge 12-month brief with them on this thing, that, and then lo and behold, it'll go to some office in Europe or we're canning that now. Forget it. And this is what you're up against. Whereas with Astonish, what we'll do is we won't analyse it, won't it? If we say we're going to have a go at something, we'll do it. We'd never be reckless.
I love this idea that you don't over complicate things, and you're quite intuitive in terms of how you approach stuff, and you don't overanalyze the data and things like that. Is that fair to say?
We absolutely don't. If we're going to have, we've got a TV campaign going at the moment, and your blue chips, your corporates would be, they'd probably be so forensic over what it's delivering in, and we need to understand this. With Astonish, don't get me wrong, we're a results business like anybody, but thank God we must be doing something right, because the results year on year are
phenomenal,
are absolutely outstanding. And I think part of it is we absolutely don't get it right every time. But I've got a very simple rule that if I get 8 out of 10 right, then we'll be doing okay. So if I get 2 out of 10 wrong, I'll never be reckless. I'll never be, to the point of putting the business in jeopardy or anything like that. We'll dust ourselves down and we'll move on. We've recently had to write off, I think, 30,000 euros of packaging on a specific project that won't have. We might have washed our hands and broken even on it. However, we spent time on it and there was investment on it. It was one particular bulk pack that we did for a specific customer. And I don't mind saying who it was, Costco. And it just didn't work out. It didn't hit the threshold that was needed to remain in their business ongoing. But I'd put my hand up and had to forward purchase about a year's worth based on a forecast, a year's worth of packaging, that sadly after 3 months it was pulled out. But that's business, that's having a go, that's backing your, your gut, your instinct on. And I think that's key. I think you have to go with your instinct and you have to go with your gut. And, I'm not being arrogant here, but, it doesn't happen by accident, these things. You must be, you must have a skill and an art at being able to deliver what customers want.
And you've got to have a fucking good product as well, which is what you've got. If you've got a really great product, then it's going to do, your product will sell, which is what your dad saw. It's what you keep seeing. You keep spotting products and diversifying, which is, like you said, 45 million sprays.
Yeah, and give us an idea of the size and scale then. I mean, you mentioned the 45 million sprays, and I'm picturing this, 8 people in a shed in Meanwood. Fast forward 50 years later, give our listeners an idea of the kind of size and scale of the business now then.
Well, it's interesting because it probably isn't, in terms of the scale of personnel, it probably isn't what most people would believe it to be. And I think the key to that is that if you're manufacturing at FMCG, you have to massively invest in the absolute Rolls Royce of the kit. And that's something that has been a key. I went, back to the beginning when I first started working, it was something that was key to me to understand, how do we make this better? How are we going to improve on packing this, get it out quicker, understand demand? And I guess the great thing for me is what I've afforded myself now is the opportunity through the performance of the business is to invest in the best of the best kit. So, we have a fully automated state-of-the-art site that we moved to, we put our hand up and started investing in right at the beginning of COVID, and we moved into 3 years ago. That has probably been invested into the tune of in excess of 30 million, which we invested and is fully paid for. There's zero debt on that, and we're so proud of the fact that we've got a site that manufactures, I believe, on average, I think the numbers are somewhere in between across the whole production lines, somewhere in the region of about 600,000 units a day from this single site. And in terms of personnel, from top to bottom, including the May, the lovely lady who comes in and cleans our offices every evening. We have, I think, 102 people. So we are a lean business. But we're very proud of those people because they're long-standing. We're developing, some brilliant young people as well who we've sponsored along the way to do certain degree courses alongside their work. And the business will always, bring in key people as we develop and grow. But as a manufacturer, you have to be lean.
So you mentioned risk-taking, which I love. And I love the fact that, you are now a business of a certain size and scale, yet you continue to have this kind of entrepreneurial risk-taking attitude.
Yeah.
You mentioned the packaging kind of mistake you made. This show is about mistakes and marketing fuck-ups and business mistakes.
Yeah.
Can you think of any other mistakes along the way, shall we say, that have kind of defined what the business is now, or indeed that you've learned from?
Yeah, I think you make a number of mistakes that I think that word hindsight is a great word, Will, that if you knew then what you know now, it can be a culmination of how you position your product. So sometimes we've positioned our product in a certain way. That could be the price point, could be effectively too low. And I think in retail, it's a lot easier to come down in price than it is to go up in price. So once you've set a precedence on where your price is on a certain product, if we need to increase or put that price up for reasons that either we've got challenges of our own in terms of raw materials, packaging, the retailer needs to earn a better margin on the products, etc. That becomes a challenge when we've set the price point too low from the get-go. So we've had a couple of instances over the years where I look back and think, do you know what, we'd have had a huge opportunity there if we'd have put the price point more realistic towards, but we got a little bit too, and I think this is, again, something that I have to accept and we have to accept as a business, that sometimes we can be a little bit, too gung-ho and too impetuous maybe, and then reflect on it after and think, do you know what, actually, if we'd have just, but that's just the nature of how we are as a business. So we've got to accept that we're going to hit a few sticky wickets along the way. I think, we've launched, as I said before, certain products that just haven't worked out. But I think the biggest thing from my perspective is that if we were too proud, or I was too, pig-headed to think to myself that I'm not going to accept that was the wrong thing to do, or I'm not going to accept that product isn't right for us, and I'm just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing something that is costing the business even more to try and, improve on its situation, then that's going to actually have an even bigger impact. So I think the best thing for me, and what I've certainly allowed myself to learn along the way and accept along the way, is that if something's not working, just accept it for what it is. And move on quickly. Yeah,
no, there's a lot to be said for knowing when to quit, isn't there? And actually, absolutely. That's no bad thing at all.
Not at all.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Howard. If people want to get hold of you, how's the best way to find you, other than just Googling astonish.co.uk?
And do you want people to get in touch with you?
I was about to say, you don't mean me personally, do you, Chris? Astonish.
Often people like wanting to people to connect to them on LinkedIn, but
I'm a bit of a technophobe, to be honest, Chris. So it's ironic that one of the first topics that you touched on at the beginning of this was the fact that the digital platforms and how influence and cleanfluencers are such a big part of our business today, engaging. And it's ironic that I don't have a Facebook page, I don't have an Instagram page, and I'm not on LinkedIn. But right, that doesn't mean that I'm not a people's person, or I'm not a person that's willing to
send
engage. So
send your Telegram too.
I work every day, Chris. I'm in the office every day, bar the few holidays that I take. So I'm always there. People will, they can happily reach out to the office. I'm constantly involved with everything that we do. So I'm more than happy to support, other industries or businesses that want to connect with Astonish and understand, whether there's an opportunity or something we can do together.
Well, thanks for sharing your story, because it's been fascinating. I think the listeners are going to enjoy it as well. So, yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.